Hi, I'm Melissa George with The Mindful Heart. Today's story comes from the book Canadian Wonder Tales by Cyrus MacMillan and it's called A Native American Cinderella. Long ago on the shores of the Atlantic coast, there dwelt a great warrior. He was kind and honest, and he did many wonderful deeds. He also had a very strange and interesting power. He could make himself invisible. With this power, he could walk unseen among his enemies and find out their plans and stop them when he could. He could also walk among his friends and find out their struggles and help them when he could. He became known among the people as Strong Wind the Invisible. Strong Wind lived with his sister in a tent near the sea, and his sister helped him greatly in his work. Many maidens would have been so happy to marry him, and many looked to marry him because of his good deeds. It was known that Strong Wind would only marry the first maiden who could see him as he came home at night. And many tried, but it was a very long time before anyone succeeded. Strong Wind used a very clever trick to test the truthfulness of all these maidens, for it was important to him that his wife was as kind and as honest as he was. Each evening, his sister walked on the beach with any girl who wished to marry Strong Wind. His sister could always see him, but no one else could. And as he came home to his tent in the twilight, the sister would ask the maiden with her, "Do you see him?" And because they all wanted so badly to marry him, each girl would answer falsely, "Yes." And his sister would then ask, "With what does he pull his sled?" And each girl would answer, "A moose hide, or a pole, or a cord of wood." And then the sister would know they lied, because their answers were guesses. And for years and years, many tried, and many lied, and many failed. For Strong Wind would not marry any who was untruthful. In a nearby village, there lived a chief with his 3 daughters. Their mother had died many years ago, and one of the daughters was much younger than the other 2. She was very beautiful and gentle and well liked by all who knew her. But because they had no mother to guide them, the older daughters were very jealous of this younger sister's charms, and they treated her badly. They were cruel, and they clothed her in rags so she would be ugly, and they cut off her long, beautiful black hair, and they burned her face with coals from the fire so she would have scars. And then they lied to their father, telling him that she had done these things to herself. Like many of the other girls, the older daughters had heard of Strong Wind, and they wanted to try to win him. One evening, as the sun went down, the oldest daughter dressed up in her finest clothes and walked along the shore with Strong Wind's sister. Soon he came home from his day of working, and his sister asked the usual question, "Do you see him?" And the older sister lied and said, "Yes." And when Strong Wind's sister asked, "What is his shoulder strap made of?" the oldest sister lied and said, "Rawhide." Then she entered the tent, and she hoped to see Strong Wind eating his dinner, but all she saw was his coat and his moccasins as he took them off. She could see nothing more, for Strong Wind knew that she had lied and kept himself hidden. When she returned to her home, she was angry that she had failed to claim Strong Wind, and she complained to her father and her sister. The second sister, hearing the story, decided to try her luck, hoping she would have a different fate. She put on all her ornaments and fixed her hair and set off for the ocean. When she arrived at the shore, she found Strong Wind's sister, and she walked with her while the day ended, waiting for Strong Wind to return. As he came, the sister asked, "Do you see him?" And the second sister, seeing nothing, said, "Yes, I do. He wears buckskin pants and he carries beaver pelts." Later, when she entered the tent and she saw the coat and the moccasins come off, and she still didn't see Strong Wind, she admitted that she could not really see him, and she went home dismayed. Many days later, the chief's youngest daughter, with her short hair and her ragged clothes and her scarred face, asked her father if she could seek Strong Wind. He reluctantly agreed because he thought nobody would want to marry his ugliest daughter. But she patched up her ragged clothes the best that she could, and she hid her short hair, and she bravely went forth to try to see the invisible one, just as her sisters and the other girls of the village had done before. But they laughed and mocked her as she left, calling her a fool. As she passed along the road, all the people laughed because of her tattered dress and her burnt face. Silently and determined, she went on her way. Strong Wind's sister received the girl with kindness and warmth, and at twilight she took her to the beach. Soon enough, Strong Wind came home, drawing his sled. His sister asked the question, "Do you see him?" And the youngest sister answered sadly, "No." Strong Wind's sister wondered greatly because this girl had spoken the truth. And again she asked, "Do you see him now?" And the girl answered, "Yes, and he is very wonderful." And Strong Wind's sister asked, "With what does he draw his sled?" And the girl answered, "With a rainbow." And she was very afraid because she had never seen anything like that before. And the sister asked further, "What is his bowstring made of?" And the girl answered, "His bowstring is the Milky Way." Strong Wind's sister knew that because this girl had spoken the truth, her brother had made himself visible to her. She said, "Truly, you have seen him." And she took him to her home and bathed her. And all the scars disappeared from her body and her face, and her hair grew long and black again like a raven's wing, and she dressed in fine clothes and with many fancy earrings and necklaces. And at dinner, she asked her to sit in the wife's seat. Soon Strong Wind entered and sat down beside her and asked her to be his bride. And the very next day they were married. But the girl's two older sisters were very cross and astonished at what had happened. Strong Wind, who knew of their cruel treatment, decided to punish them. Using his great power, he changed them both into aspen trees, and he rooted them into the earth. And since that day, the leaves of the aspen trees have always trembled and shivered in fear at the approach of Strong Wind. And even if he comes softly, they are still mindful of his great power and anger because of how cruel they were to their sister so long ago. And the girl? She was happy being married to the kind and honest Strong Wind, and ever afterward, she helped him do great deeds to help others. And that's our story for today. I hope you'll join us next time for a new adventure at the Mindful Heart.